Welcome back to Talking Dragon Age, the show where I talk about Dragon Age. Today we're talking about
Enchantments!
So yeah, we're looking into Dwarven runecraft, the enchantment of armor and weapons, magical artifacts and foci, that sort of thing. So let's start out with the basic enchantments we see in the games. Enchanting involves the molding of Lyrium into runes, so it can only safely be done by Dwarves in Tranquil. It makes me question why they chose the title of Enchanter for Mages of the Circle, but that's not really relevant. While we see common runes for fire, ice, and lightning, the Orzammar Shaperate commonly uses runes for storing actual memories. These apparently differ from the memory crystals Dagna might use in Inquisition. It's not explicitly said, but I personally infer that the memory runes can transfer memories directly into the mind of someone, while the memory crystals seem more like cameras. But that is conjecture and unconfirmed. Old Dwarven structures also have runes on things like load-bearing walls that are inferred to mean strength or endurance. Sometimes the Legion of the Dead brings back lost runes from the Deep Roads and Old Tugs. The exact origin of the shapes or patterns of the runes is unknown to modern society. While runes like this involve the folding of Lyrium to harness magic, Elves apparently have a version of enchanting all their own. A ring in Awakening called the Keeper's Charm claims that some Dalish keepers know the old ways of imbuing items with magic. I'm assuming they have a means of casting a spell that holds on to an object so that they don't have to manually keep it up. The more common runecraft, it's never explicitly stated how the runes work. I personally think of it as similar to a mage's spell. So the rune is essentially the caster. The shape of the rune describes what the spell is, the Lyrium pulls the energy from the fade for the desired effect, and the rune just works. Now, I've talked about how dwarves have runes that store actual memories, and how they also make use of memory crystals. Veilfire runes are actually very similar. It was, of course, perfected by the elves, but has persisted into the modern day, though it is a far less common practice. The Codex entry says Veilfire can transfer a tangible impression of sights, sounds, and even emotions on the reader. According to the Inquisition's investigations, the Veilfire runes can be transferred from one object to another. They also appear to not use Lyrium as the Dwarven runes do. Now, I'd like to talk about some other magical objects that are unique. Starting with the Anvil of the Void, we see how much Lyrium is in it. Caridin would dress a living dwarf in the body of a golem, lay them on the anvil, then pour molten Lyrium over them to transform them into a golem. Each golem could be controlled by a control rod which had a bunch of runes on it. The rods could be damaged, such as in the case of Shale, and are unable to exert actual control on the golem, though this one was still intact enough to awaken Shale from her paralysis. Branka was also able to use a control rod to control multiple golems around Caridin, but it's never explained how the rods connect to which golems. It's also never explained how Branka was able to instantly create clones of herself during the fight. Well, the way I interpret the anvil to work is that it holds the dwarf's soul in place as the golem is forged, rather than the dwarf simply dying and their soul leaving their body to return to the stone. In theory, they could have used a spirit from the Fade instead, though every case we see of them trying that has the spirit going immediately out of control. Also, I should at least mention the Litany of Andrala. See, Andrala was a mage from Tevinter who studied blood magic, but did not practice it herself. She moved to the Ferelden Circle because she was the target of assassins in Tevinter, and she carried out her work and developed her litany. The litany is actually spoken word in the ancient Tevinter language, and it dispels magic specifically affecting the mind. That includes both demonic influence and blood magic. It seems the litany can be used by anyone, so I feel like this should be a wider known thing, or used more commonly. Lord Seeker Lambert uses it in Asunder. From the description, I'm not sure the source of the dispelling wave. It could be like the Templar abilities that reinforce reality, or it could be the words summon energy from the Fade that essentially resets the mind so that it is no longer being influenced. I'd also like to talk about items such as the Orb of Destruction, the Well of Sorrows, Achelara, Astrariums, the Lights of Arlathan, and the Mask of Fen'Harel. The Mask of Fen'Harel only appeared in the live-action Dragon Age Redemption, and I do not know if it is canon. A Cerebos steals it from the Dalish, uses it and elven blood in a ritual which opens a portal to the Fade, and then proceeds to speak to Fen'Harel. I do not know if Fen'Harel could actually hear him, or if he even cared, but Talis destroyed the mask and the portal proceeded to close. The Lights of Arlathan appear in the Witch Hunt DLC for Origins, and, well, they are used for scrying and are only activated by untainted elven blood. That's about all we know. The only ones we know of were found beneath Kadash Tag, but there could be more out there. Maybe they'll come into play in the next game. Now, Astrariums, it seems they were always meant to triangulate the entrance to a treasure trove used by an ancient Tevinter cult. Why no one solved these in the 1,000 years before the Inquisitor showed up, who knows? Especially since the puzzles are pretty easy. They were meant for only people familiar with ancient astronomy to be able to solve, but, well, they failed. Oculara are tranquil skulls that the Venatori have fiddled with to somehow reveal hidden ancient elven shards which serve as keys to the temple in the Forbidden Oasis. Why the Venatori set up the Oculara but did not take the shards they revealed is anyone's guess. The Well of Sorrows is a pool of water enchanted by ancient elven magic that enabled the priests of Mythal to pass their knowledge down through generations. Either Morrigan or the Inquisitor can drink from the well, taking all that knowledge and power into themselves. With the well's water and power gone, no one else will ever receive its power. At least, not unless the vessel figures out how to pass it on. The Orb of Destruction is an immensely powerful artifact created by Fen'Harel which stores vast amounts of magical energy. Unlike Lyrium, which enhances a mage's mana, providing more power with which to pull energy from the Fade, the Orb of Destruction stores that energy within itself. At full power, Solas was able to use it to create the Veil. Lastly, I want to talk about these elven artifacts Solas has us activate. Some have theorized they're actually going to help him in some way. Personally, I think they do exactly what he says they do. They strengthen the Veil. They reinforce magical wards. They repel magical energy that may be damaging to the Veil. Why would he do this if he wants to tear the Veil down? Well, because once he has the power to do so, those artifacts aren't going to matter. In the short term, they prevent more rifts from opening up. The more rifts there are, the more innocent spirits are pulled through and become demons. And more chaos will ensue, which helps Corypheus. So I think that's about it. This is a lot longer than I thought it would be. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to comment and like, and remember, Tala Nadas.